One man is growing old and one man is being told that his land is not his own now. He has no place called home. He must learn to be and grow and find time to feed his soul. When he learns to be alone, he will find that he is whole. Gonna break free tonight. Gonna take these chains, gonna make it through the night. Hello, everybody. You are listening to Making Life Brighter, and I am your host, Winifred Adams. We are here today with return guests from the Oregon Statewide Jural Assembly and Truth Tour speakers, Charlie White and Cynthia Palmetier. And you have heard them on Making Life Brighter here before, and they are back and they have a strong message for the nation, a very strong message. They are doing something unique up there, and you can also hear them on Making Life Brighter this coming Thursday on the VoiceAmerica channel, on the Variety channel, technically on VoiceAmerica. So welcome back, ladies and fellow Truth Tour speakers. Nice to have you here. Thank you for being back. And okay, we're going to tear it up. What are we doing? What are we doing in this nation right now? Cynthia, you are passionate about why you're part of the Statewide Jural Assembly. What makes you so passionate?
I believe that the Oregon Statewide Jural Assembly, which is a common law court, has a way of taking us into the future, first taking back our state. And if other states follow suit, they can take their states back, their government back, and ultimately our nation. But I believe that it's a way to do it without going to war.
That's nice. That's important right now, because there certainly is the war drum beating, isn't there, ladies? Yes. Charlie, how do you feel about that? What do you feel it is pressing at the moment?
Well, certainly, we're all witnessing a tremendous amount of control and corruption and fraud, not only in our election, but, by our government officials and those who are elected to offices, especially those who are, continual political, incumbents, to say it nicely, who are part of the political mill, just over and over and over, conducting their business of government. And we don't want government to be a business. We want people to have a voice in what it is that is being imposed on each other, which hopefully is very little. We have way too much government weighing in over us and imposing itself in too many aspects of our lives. And so that's why we are rebelling. Basically, we're in Article 1, Section 1, form social compact. We formed a group that is taking our Article 1, Section 1 Oregon Constitution seriously and doing it by action.
You are doing it seriously, and you now have officers and marshals that are coming in to join you and stand with you for enforcement. Is that correct?
We just created our marshal office. We have a marshal and a deputy marshal, and it's growing with the intention of it becoming an enforcement arm of our court, because we are a court. We make we find the evidence, and we take the votes from our jury pool for our grand and petite jury trials, and then we make the conviction. But we don't do anything in terms of enforcement. So we recognize that we really need more people, first of all, to recognize what we're doing and to educate themselves enough to recognize that it is the power of the people who really need to enforce what it is that we're doing. And what they complain about, but say, oh, well, you're not, where's the enforcement? Well, the people are. The more people who rise up and say, wait a minute, we are not being heard. We're not being fairly represented. This isn't our government. We should have our own localized governance so that we can dictate our own lives, not be dictated to and controlled.
And Cynthia,
and I want to speak to that thing about the government. I really believe the Lord has told me that you can't fix evil, and our government's evil at our state level and our federal level, but we need to deal state by state and not from the hierarchy up and down, which is how we're enslaved right now, is from that hierarchy way high up and down. So
We
I
don't
think,
even, yeah, I
go
was just
ahead.
gonna say, we don't even have a hierarchy in
Yeah,
our assembly. We choose not to. We all bring our talents as human beings. Every one of us is creative and gifted and talented by our God-given talents and
Yes.
created by our life. And so we bring that to this plane of existence on the land and soil of Oregon. We are of the land and soil. We don't want the kind of government that's imposed on us by a foreign entity, which is, comes from Great Britain. And
And we've tried to educate them in the lies that we've been spoon-fed for hundreds of years, actually. And some people have begun to understand it. Others are coming on board. But when the time is right, which is really soon, like soon, I know it's soon, they're going to turn around and they're going to use what the Oregon Statewide Jural Assembly, every single one of these trials with all these different people and entities within our states to destroy the evil and the corruption, because we've already done the work. It's there. All they have to do is pick it up.
Yeah, one of
That's
the
right.
things that's interesting is that, they're trying to do away with paper, right?
Right. They're trying to go
paperless
digital and
society.
everything, so you can't
Okay.
sign for anything.
Right. So what we do is we have the paperwork. We keep our paperwork secure. And our paperwork is our documentation for the work that we've done. We also have all of our trials and all of our meetings recorded. And so the importance of the paperwork is not only that we have the paper itself, but we get together and we have to have a certain number of individuals with our red thumbprint and our red signature signifying the blood. We are the living body, mind, soul, spirit of the land and soil of our state on Oregon. That's what we state very clearly in our LTA, which is the requirement to sign to join our jury pools. We recognize who we are of our creator. And we didn't start with a prayer. Can I do that now?
Sure. Yeah. We could use that for certain. Thank you.
Dear beloved creator, all beings of light and love, seen and unseen, we invite in as much of your light and support you can give at this time. We feel the imminence of something big, a major shift, a precipitation of events that will continue to change what was once accepted as normal. We stand prepared and we welcome and invite any and all divine input now in this battle against evil. So we summon all those divine energies that wish to join us and others who have brought us all this far. This we humbly ask as we stand in our divinity. Let it be so, and so it is.
Wow, that's really beautiful. The vision that I got in the middle of that is it was a vision of angelic children holding hands all the way around the earth plane. I don't know what that means.
The
but
innocence.
Yeah, that's what
that's the thing, is we need to get back to our innocence, because people think that they know so much because they listen to the news, they think they follow, and they're just not getting to the truth of it. And that's the thing that's so frustrating, is that we are no longer innocent. We all think we know so much, especially if we've gone to college and we have a PhD and this and that. Bottom line is, people on the land and soil in Oregon, if you could just clear away all of that agenda, all of that programming and all of that hierarchy, it is hierarchy, because, if you have a few letters after your name, then you have more authority. Not so. That's what we're finding. That's what we're doing on Oregon with our Jural Assembly. We just want to be people on the land and soil and make our own lives work for us, not have them work for us and give over our authority to them who don't know us and don't care about us. They're a corporation.
Yeah, not caring is the key. Cynthia,
Mhm.
what is it that you feel is going to take place in the next few days? Tomorrow's a big day. What's happening in your heart and soul in this nation?
I feel that the wave is going to be released in our region um, to expose the darkness and the evil and the lies and the deception. We'll stick with election integrity right now. Our state, which when we were on the truth tour and when we were in an audience, I guess of about 15 people with Juan 07, we talked about, I talked a little bit about it to him, that Oregon is ready to shift. And as dark as it's been here, it's the one that's going to bring the light into the rest of the nation. I believe that, you know, Oregon and Washington and California are like these three little wicked stepsisters that do everything together. And I am from California. I was born and raised there, generations from California. So I'm very familiar with that particular state. And when this happens, it's going to arise. This wave is going to come out of here over the next few months, and it's going to sweep across this nation and shift it for good. It's going to feel icky because there's so much bad stuff that's going on right now, and they've tied our hands, they've taken our fuel, they've killed our cattle and our
They're
chickens.
taking
you
our
know.
children.
They're taking our children, and there's they're taking men and women off the streets and putting them into bondage and slavery. There's so much evil that's going on, but it's going to be exposed. And the Oregon Statewide Jural Assembly has exposed a great portion of it in all of the
All aspects.
trials that we've held against
Mhm.
all these different organizations.
Mhm. Yeah, the other thing I'd like to say, and I don't want to go away from that because that's really so key. But, you know, when people recognize that we are not a democracy, our country was not founded on democracy, it's a republic. And what we hear over and over and over is our democracy, save our democracy. This is for our democracy. And it's just like fingernails on a blackboard to me. We are not a democracy. We don't want mob rule. We don't want a bunch of people voting when they don't even know who or what they're voting for. They don't have a clue. They've watched it on the news with all of the campaign garbage that's on there, and it's so negative and hostile. I don't want to vote for any of those people. None of those persons have any clue as to our foundation, which is our original Constitution based on the Articles of Confederation and Perpetual Union, back in the very foundation of our country and the beginnings of the original Constitution of the United States of America, of America's Constitution.
So who are you voting for tomorrow? Or have you voted yet?
I'm writing in because we've convicted all three of our leading gubernatorial candidates. All three of them have already been convicted by our court for not upholding the correct Constitution and taking an oath to the corporation. They're not honorable, and they know it. We've served them all. They all know it.
That's
all
incredible.
90 legislators, all but one, have been convicted of basically treason. They've sworn an oath to a foreign entity.
So who will you write in?
Mark Thielman.
Mark Thielman.
Mark Thielman?
Mhm.
He had been running previously, right? But he lost the race.
Yeah,
So
I
you'll
would
write
think
him in
that-
anyway.
They
Does he have
say
a
they
majority?
lost the race. They
Yeah,
say he
see,
lost the race.
we don't
He
know.
has a standing lawsuit against the state of Oregon, along with at least a half a dozen other people that were in the primaries for different positions in the state, that has proof upon proof upon proof of them messing with the stats as they were collecting the information on how people had voted. There's
And I
just
would,
so much proof against them that,
yeah.
yeah.
So if you write in Mark, and let's say that he were to win, what would change? What would happen?
I would like you to describe, Cynthia, what he did in his school district during COVID. That will lay kind of an understanding of the substance of this man and what he's been up against.
So he was a superintendent of Alsea School District, and he never closed his school district down. He refused to close the school. At first, when COVID first started, you know, he broke for like a week, but what he saw was single mothers who struggled, who couldn't go to work, and he knew that what ultimately was going to come was people losing their houses, them not being able to take care of their children. And so he kept his school district open. He turned it into a charter school. So he changed the jurisdiction of his actual school to something different. And his school district began to grow. He refused to take any COVID money. So because he didn't want the government telling him what he could and couldn't do. Then he came up against the Oregon health authorities because of what he was.
And we still are.
Yeah, he actually still is. He's in the middle of all kinds, you know, there's all kinds of different entities in the state that's against him and, you know, trying to drag him through the court system.
Politicians and policymakers are imposing. These are unelected. A lot of these are unelected people.
Well, tell us what you see that he could do now. Like if he won and he came in, what's the big change? What would happen right away? Because it seems to me like if they're fudging the previous elections, if you will, then now what?
I can't really speak for him at all, other than the fact that I happen to know what the Lord says about him. And I traveled with him for almost 5 months. I went everywhere that he went on the campaign trail as an intercessor to pray for him, along with another woman. And that was quite the ordeal to go into every county and to do what we did. It was very exhausting and very tiring and very eye-opening for me.
Why?
To be in the
Why was
political
it so
realm.
hard?
Well, because the political realm is quite evil. It's just, I put it in perspective one day after I'd been to Bakersfield, and I recognized the fact that it was like my drug dealing days on steroids. That's how I'm serious.
There's a point where I recognize that, you know, we have what they call parties, political parties. Well, that's a funny name. The other thing is politics is an invention. It's an invention by the corporation to pit us one against the other. They're not parties. No. They're not entities that we really are benefiting from by having it go this way and then that way and this way and that way. And I will say also that on Oregon, if you want to talk about voter fraud or voter integrity, look at Oregon, who's had 35 continuous years of Democrat governors, unbroken, 35 years. Sometimes the response is, well, yeah, because we're one of those blue states. We're progressive states, so that makes sense. Well, it only makes sense to those who are in that party who haven't looked at our history and haven't questioned the integrity of not only our elections, but of our politicians.
So are you saying that there's an underlying red state that's brewing, or
Yes.
is it still red
California
and blue in your
too.
system?
I think it's the big cities with a lot of the media and a lot of the businesses who also impose in a subtle and sometimes not so subtle way their political agendas. It's corporations benefit by other corporations and by other business entities who want to further and foster their own agendas. So that's why cities work the way they do. It's a good old boy system.
But isn't that the heart of America, of moving your entrepreneurial spirit and connecting with others to keep that in place? It's what made towns and villages run in the day, or is that
absolutely
not the case?
but we have agendas running that are underlying those good intentions by good people. That's why when things, small is beautiful. There are things that happen among people who can entertain and communicate and further each other's interests and talents and and expertise. So when we don't have those opportunities to interface with one another and feel each other and recognize the intelligence and the wisdom and visceral, there's a visceral thing that happens when we get together in a town square or a school board meeting or that kind of thing, where people really get to wrestle with things. But when we're told in a classroom or in a living room what to think and feel, and there's no discussion and there's censorship, all of that goes away. When the boss tells you to do this or to do that, because otherwise you're going to lose your health care and, oh, by the way, your job. So, COVID was a good enlightening opportunity, as Cynthia had pointed out earlier. A lot of people woke up and recognized that the imposition on us is horrific.
So where are we going from here? What do you see happening next? Nationwide. Let's start there. Now, Cynthia, you were talking about Oregon taking the entire nation and or being a hinge point for the rest of the nation based on what you two are doing or your Jural Assembly is doing. And you're very convicted in that. But where does that stand next to, say, the Trump agenda or the Republican agenda nationwide? How does that work?
Well, I see it as a point of the people taking back their actual identity, their sovereignty. They're truly coming to understand the truth as God presented it, the way that our Constitution was written originally, which is us being a sovereign nation. We went to war with England to get away from what we're living under now. Except that I think that this is even worse than it was then, but I could be wrong. I didn't live then, so hey.
Well, it's certain. Go ahead, Charlie.
I was just going to say, I'd really like to bring it back to the children and the trafficking. And when you look at the monetary gain that's being done by these entities from organ harvesting, SRA, all of the horrific things that are really underlying these major money makers. You can call them corporations or call them whatever, mega, whatever. These are not issues that people are dealing with on a true level. Most people it's so horrific to consider what's really going on for our children, not only child protective services, not only, with trafficking and SRA, but in our schools and all of the things that the agendas that are happening there. Our children are at risk. They're literally being taken from us or stolen. So parents are losing their opportunity to really raise their own children to their own principles. This is really alarming.
Well, let me ask you this.
It should be a wake-up call.
Our other Truth Tour speaker, Kevin Hoyt, is making waves right now and all over the nation, but actually all over the world currently. And we will have him on later. But Kevin is standing for the same kind of thing in the state of Vermont, and he's trying to have himself put in as governor there, and they're blocking him. They're bucking him entirely. So everyone that sees this evil on the inside, like you do, like Kevin has experienced, you are realizing this is really tough for the average person to grasp, that, little Susie over there was basically taken and just decimated in her spirit and her soul because some other adult got away with whatever they're doing that feeds some satanic system that goes on in this country or worldwide for that matter. You're saying stop the corruption, at least on a level you can control, and then take back the energy of the innocent so that we stand without the evil in this land. this is really going to come to a fever pitch soon, because imagine the people that don't really know that's going on. Imagine all those that can't fathom that the lady down the street that works in that store over there or whatever at night is part of some group of people that would even do that and then be that person in front of you again. That's the part that people can't wake up to. They can't see, I think. And, you know, people have said, well, let's just stop it. I think it's so insidious because who's doing it? Who are these people in your community that are doing these things, and how do they get outed? Since you've been in this for a while and you've kind of seen inside the infrastructure to some degree, how do you penetrate that? And I am not using those words lightly, to take back that power and say, stop that. That is no longer allowed on earth. How do you do that?
By exposing it. And I don't mean exposing it by the words that we use. We, again, when we sat with Juan, he talked about the children in the tunnels and them never coming out. Well, when I came home, I wept before the Lord. I cried, and I told my husband, I said, no matter what's happened to those children, I know that there's people, good people on this earth that would take them, and the world needs to see it because they don't believe that it's real. Do you know how many people do not really believe it? And they're not going to believe it.
Well,
Yeah.
Lewis was sharing on the show that got taken down on YouTube that I did with him, that they had just had 2 young children they picked up with panda eyes. I mean, this is disgusting. This is so
Yes. Yes.
disgusting. There's no word for it, and how
No.
people can get away with it. Now,
It's vile. It's vile evil.
evil. And I need to ask this question because I've posed this before, and this is really a wake-up call to the rest of the people. You know by what you're doing that the courtships, meaning the courts, well, technically under Russell J. Gould and what he says, they're closed. But the courts that are still operating under their jurisdictions and playing the game that they're playing under the corporation rules, the judge is not really in control of the courts. It's the clerk of the court. Please explain that for us. Cynthia.
Well,
Whenever I've been in court recently with other people as part of the assembly to assist them, you have to go to the clerk of the court to ask the questions. The clerk of the court is who you direct everything to, and then they will say, he or she will go back. They'll say, well, I need to talk to the judge, or they'll just answer your question for you, yes or no. They're the ones. You don't go before the judge to ask questions to. You go to the clerk of the court. Always. It's been that way in the federal court in Eugene. It was that way in Eugene. And would you say it was like that with the education system, Charlie?
I would think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, you know, I could even look at our own court. You know, if you want to look at our clerk, who is Ron, he knows the protocol. He knows the answers. He's done the research. These are, but I will say that most of the people in the courtroom, as we know them, the federal and state and civil courts, the court system, the corporation court,
But
actually they're actors. They don't really.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Cynthia has to duck out here. We'll continue this conversation. Cynthia, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for being with us and coming back. We'll have you on for more, and we want to follow up so everyone can hear an interview that I'm doing with them on Thursday on Voice America. But thank you for your service, and to the people, I guess I can say on Oregon. All right. I would say in, but I'm learning on Oregon.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being the light bearer and the way shower that you are in this movement, and holding the line despite all the hits that you're taking physically, emotionally, spiritually, etc. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We'll have you back. We'll talk more. This is an ongoing
Okay.
conversation. So Charlie,
Wonderful.
let's continue on a little bit, because
Thank
we
you.
have a lot to cover yet. If if you don't have a judge, how then do you make your decisions in your jural assembly?
We bring evidence forth to our jury pool. The way we're conducting our grand and petite jury trials, and there was only one time that we hadn't and recognized that we needed to do this, is to have Zoom meetings, because we are all over the state. So we need to do it in an efficient manner where people don't have to travel. And so, and it came in with the COVID and all the requirements of limitations, I should say, of not being able to meet face to face. And so we ended up having like a week-long noon meeting, a Zoom meeting open. Anyone can pop in or out anytime they want to discuss these issues, ask their questions, wrangle with things, provide evidence. And so that we have a full week of discussion, open discussion. And
But you
then
don't have a
also
judge in your system, correct?
the people are the judge. This is common law. We're all equals. We all have an equal voice, and we recognize one another as the authority of themselves and an opinion, and we come together to determine what is the best for whatever the issue is or whatever the topic of concern is. So we have the grand jury, which is a larger panoply of people. We have any number of people from ideally, 16 is the minimum, generally 23 to 24 people. But we've had over 30 and over 40 people who want to weigh in on this vote, and it's growing. We have people who want to participate. They want to give their opinion. They want to be heard and counted. So, and they know the ones who are doing this voting in our jury pool have already been doing their homework. They already recognize the problem and the source of the problem. And so once the jury pool happens, the decision is made, the vote is taken by our secretary. Then we write a presentment and a true bill. And then that true bill is presented to a petite jury. It's another call from our jury pool. And we only need 12 individuals for that. And then we have 3 as a backup in case for whatever reason. So we take those votes, and that is the conviction. We convict them based on the people's vote through 2 processes and through other means of information gathering and sharing.
So would this make all esquires null and void?
Yes, that's the intent, because that's not the republic that we want or know.
If the world were to change over, let's say there's a lot of good-hearted esquires to be out there because that's, what they want to do. They want to learn those things and, argue back and forth accordingly, or assist people in whatever their situation is. How would you see that take on a new role in a better world?
Well, from what I understand from those who are in the truth movement, I'll just refer to that general category of individuals who are awakened to what's really going on and to the heinous corruption that we're dealing with. I would say that, ideally, bar attorneys have to first recognize that they're a foreign entity, that their law form is not for the people, it's for the corporation as it is. It's for making money and for creating us as chattel. We're
Right.
not, we can't even speak for ourselves in their courts. We're not represented by their attorneys. The attorneys represent the corporation and the judge and the court. So all of those aspects or dimensions of life that we have grown to believe to be the way it is, to be true, have to come apart. We have to have a wake-up call. And I think that, if we want to go back to Wano Saban and a lot of the people in the truth movement who are doing their part, and I think everyone has an important part, and we all need to be questioning and discerning. Absolutely. That's really key. We need to be able to discuss these things media and social media have tried to, by censorship, have tried to limit this community discussion and censor individuals who have a perspective that doesn't meet the agenda of those who own or control or want to manipulate or move things a certain way, a certain agenda. So I think that we all have to relearn, unlearn and relearn. And I think that some people in this movement are actually wanting us all to stay calm and recognize that we all need
Amen.
to
I'm with
learn
that.
differently. Yeah.
Now, let me reiterate again for people that are tuning in to listen. What is the difference between what you're doing, Anna von Rice is doing, let's say other state nationals are doing? What's the difference between you and a state national?
You know, I don't really even know how to define a state national, except that you end up being limited, I feel, limited to your state, that you are beholden to your state. Well, we are beholden to our state, but we don't call ourselves state nationals. We're simply free people on the land and soil in Oregon. We don't need to claim anything. We don't have a hierarchy. The only hierarchy is our connection to our Creator. That's why we know we are free. We have unalienable rights that we are unwilling to compromise. And so that's where, when we get some kind of imposition, we rebel. You know, we don't really need to have someone telling us what we can and can't do. We had one of our documents, one of our grand jury and petite jury trials was regarding licensing and registration and all of the things that our people are required to be able to conduct their lives, whether it's getting a fishing license, a driving license, registering your car, registering to vote. You know, you've got to sign up, get in that queue and have your number and get permission. Free people don't need permission. Free people conduct their lives with responsibility and mutual respect, and they communicate openly and freely, and we resolve our issues. This is the responsible thing to do. And we're far and away from that in this culture, and we need to get back to it. And that's what we're trying to get back to with our Jural Assembly, is to educate and let people know that we are responsible. We can learn. We can learn a different, better way to conduct our lives than what we've come to, a long, kind of incremental incursion here and there, to the point where we don't even recognize our lives as being God-given.
I love that. That's a powerful message right there. Now, you were there, you heard and saw and watched what happened with Russell J. Gould, between
Yes.
Russell and Lewis. What was your take on that? And what did you take away from Russell's talk?
It was profound how the gathering, there were attendees, and then there were the speakers, and those who were on the tour for the long haul, and some who were there for short term. I think the culmination at Anaheim, and that happened, that eruption, was profound. And it was profound in the sense that we recognized the absolute differences between one perspective and another. You know, we were all there for the truth, the truth tour. There is a truth, but we each also come to it from what's true to each of us. And so it was an ignition in the crowd. It was, people got out of their chairs and they were yelling and shouting, and one clamored for the microphone, and it was an eruption, but it was a really healthy eruption because there weren't any fists flying. I almost thought there might be.
I was going to say, it came really close to that, though.
It did. But, you could see the sincerity of each of the presenters, both Daryl, who had just presented, I don't know if it was right
Derek,
before Russell, or
Derek, Johnson.
yeah,
Mhm.
Derek, yeah. So, they had very different perspectives on how the reality is. and what they've each been doing to honor where we are and go a direction that they feel is beneficial for the whole. To say that, responsible adults can communicate, yeah, it had to get worked out. And it was actually there on a certain level. And then thereafter, it's like if you read a good book and you've got the denouement, and you've got all of this rising action and the denouement, and then there's the calm and the finish. And sometimes the finish is very unsettling and you need some time to reflect on it. And I feel like that's kind of what was going on, not only after things settled and we all dispersed the hall that evening, but also the next day. There was a lot of coming together and a lot of communication and a lot of what if and what'd you think. And it's so healthy to have that kind of dialogue without having violence or having, even you can have even in your face emotion, but but to do it civilly,
Well, how did Russell's talk strike you? What did you take away from that?
I felt that Russell was very honest and he was in his integrity in terms of what he was presenting. And he believes in his way of doing his reality, our reality.
Do you see that there's a utility to the grammar, the parse syntax grammar?
Absolutely.
For what you do?
Yeah, and I feel like I'd like to integrate it into our documents. I'd like to learn it because I think that, if we shut out anything, any one way that it is, we need to stay open to what options are available and how we can further ourselves and grow in our understanding of what needs to happen to make the shift. And I know that Russell has opposition, but anything that's new or different, people tend to get up in arms. I could use an example if I have time.
Sure.
I was involved in, there were 4 of us, 5 sort of, but 4 women who were very motivated to get italic handwriting into the Portland public school system here in Portland, Oregon. And this was when my children were quite young. And they were in the school system, and I felt very dedicated to them learning how to do handwriting, that was legible and felt good to them, because handwriting is a kinesthetic thing. And so we went to a board meeting, and what I heard people say was, oh, everyone's handwriting is going to look the same. They won't have their own integrity or their own inflection. And I said, no, that is not it. That's generalizing, because, we tend to shut down when there's too much new information. People shut down and they generalize, and that's why trigger words work, because you can smear over a subject very easily and turn off a whole population of people with 1 word or 2 words that categorize something, and then therefore they don't have to look into it, entertain it, or consider it.
Yeah, that's a good point, because that's happening a lot right now. The more
Yes.
polarized things become, the
Yes.
more people are very unwilling anymore to listen to another point of view. And it seems to be kind of moving in that direction currently. It feels like that anyway. And so perhaps, we're saying that there's all these truthers out there. There's truth going on. There's truth movement. But I think that there is a deluge of information that's happening where people are A, tired, and B, they're unable or maybe unwilling on some level to listen to other points of view because of what you just said. There's trigger words, there's things that are going on. Well, if you're not that, then I'm not identifying with you, and never mind you.
Well, yeah, just the other day in the Nextdoor app, someone asked about Black Hawk helicopters overhead, and did anyone know why they were there? And people were positing this and that, and I just said there is a lot of military preparation and readiness for anything that might occur because of the election and all of the possible unrest that might occur. And I said it might behoove people to look at alternative sources of information, such as Rumble or a Telegram app. That was all it was. I just offered that. And someone said, well, it's actually this. And please, let's just stop with the conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
And,
So offering
see, there it
information.
is. Yeah. So,
Becomes-
you can take it back actually to JFK and the whole thing, and that the whole term conspiracy theory was created at that point in time for any other opinion that might occur that could reveal the truth. And that's what we're doing. And so, yeah, there is a conspiracy and we are on it.
Well, on that note, I'd like to say thank you so much for taking time out and being with us. We'll see what happens tomorrow. We'll follow along, and then we'll have you back on Thursday on Making Life Brighter on Voice America, because what you are doing and what your whole Jural Assembly is doing is kind of setting the stage for something new. And I think defining the differences of what you're doing, why that works versus what other people are trying to do or have been trying to do, this is key right now. Folks need to understand what's out there and know their options. And so I applaud you for all of your hard work and your incredible volume of knowledge that you've acquired now. That's no easy task.
It's come a long way.
Yeah.
We learn by doing. You can sit back and be a couch potato like I like to be sometimes. But it's also really important to do, because we all can have an opinion, but we learn so much by doing, and not to be afraid of failing, because we were taught that in school. If you don't have the right answer, shut up. And that's not it. We don't know. We don't even know all of history, but we need to learn our history. It's so key. And it's in the documents. There are tons of documents available for us to explore. We don't have to just go on Google and get an answer from Wikipedia.
We
can literally go into Scribd and into libraries and look up documents and do genuine research, and it's profound.
Well, so many people are doing more and more of that. So we'll have you back. Thank you so much. And go Jolly. We hope that you go out and make somebody else's life brighter out there, everybody. And thank you for listening. And we will be with more of these interesting conversations. And later on, you can expect Kevin Hoyt, the renegade from Vermont. And also tomorrow night, there's going to be on Renegade Media, a roundtable, of course, about more of what's happening in live time on the elections and so on. So, all right, everybody. Thank you. And thanks, Cynthia, or Charlie and Cynthia, but thank you, Charlie. And we will talk to you very soon. Take care.
Great.
One man is growing old and one man is being told that his land is not his own now. He has no place called home. He must learn to be and grow and find time to